Gloom and doom return today, and we will have to deal with showery rains from time to time, but not all the time. Tonight and right through Saturday, we've got some severe weather going on again across parts of the South and the Gulf states, and we'll take a look at the weekend and maybe peek at next week. And that is all that we have here tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. And you can support the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. Remember that the live stream is commercial free, and we keep it that way um, because we like to keep it that way. And with your support, it's great. And you can do it where it doesn't cost you anything by doing your Amazon shopping using our referral link that's pinned to the top of the chat board, or it's on the descriptor to this podcast. Just search and shop, and Amazon sends us a little bit of coin. You get your stuff, and it doesn't cost you one thin dime out of your own pocket. So support the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast by shopping at Amazon. So here we are. It is Wednesday, and gloom and doom returned for most of your area today, Joe.
Well, it wasn't so bad where I was
Right.
because it was cloudy. We were able to see, however dimly, for a good part of the day, the sun.
Hmm.
It looked like you were viewing it through a jar of mayonnaise, but there it was. And we didn't get our first raindrops, at least where I am in southwestern Putnam County, New York, until about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, I know it was different in areas to the south and especially south and west of where I was. In fact, my son, who is a teacher at a high school in Orange County, he was leading a group from his school down to Jackson, New Jersey. This is the, I guess, graduation party or the graduation prize to Great Adventure Amusement Park. And he asked me the other day, he said, "So how does it look for Wednesday?" And I said, "Eh." And I
Yeah.
don't, I didn't hear from him since, but I assume that in central New Jersey, much of the day was rather wet and really not the kind of day that you would like to have gone to an amusement park. But there you go. What can you
Well,
do?
the last three storm systems, it's very funny how this sort of stuff happens, but it does happen like this, where you get into a groove and things tend to repeat in a certain way. But it's, I think, maybe the third storm system in the last several weeks where we've seen this rain kind of come up like a wall to uh, like Route 78, New Jersey, to about Sandy Hook or just to New York City, and then stop and then spend the entire day there trying to fight the drier air that's to the north up in New England. So uh, you wind up with what was effectively really an upside down day because temperatures up in New England were a good 10 degrees warmer than they were, say, in central and South Jersey and southern Pennsylvania down into Delaware and Maryland, where a lot of places didn't get out of the low 60s today.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was semi tolerable. I ran out a few times when I took the dog out, and I said, I'm not gonna put on a jacket. I'm not gonna put on a jacket, but it was still kind of coolish. I don't know what the high temperature was locally. It was probably somewhere in the low to mid 60s, but whatever. The day overall not as bad as I see from a number of people on the chat board who said it was rainy all day, it was chilly all day. It was not a great day, but it was not a terrible day up here. Now the rain has begun in earnest, and I project that we're probably going to have uh, a goodly amount of rain, maybe about a half an inch or more,
Mm.
coming our way over the course of the next 24 hours. Although it looks like from this forecaster's viewpoint, we'll pretty well be done with the wet weather for at least a little while, sometime early tomorrow. But tonight it will
Yeah.
be.
And then it's going to come back later on Friday night into early Saturday. And then you got the upper trough that's going to swing through. I wouldn't shock me if we wind up with some afternoon and evening thunderstorms.
I agree. I think that we have a we have a fairly good chance of seeing some lightning and thunder here on Saturday, and then hopefully the whole thing lifts out and we get into a drier and much nicer weather regime for Sunday into early next week. And I was spending some time this morning debating about Sunday.
Yeah.
Um, is there the possibility that we might still have a leftover shower here on Sunday, lingering in the early part of the day before we break out into some sunshine? I mentioned it, but I may just as well take the shower thread out for Sunday tomorrow if things look a little bit better and a little bit brighter. But right now, I am mentioning that the start of the day Sunday may still see a leftover shower, leftover from what we may see on Saturday.
Yeah, it's another one of these situations where you got the cold upper trough kind of lagging, and is it going to be a day where it's self-destruct sunshine? I'm trying to be a little more optimistic with regards to Sunday on the idea that it'll be a mix of sun and clouds. But I'm kind of on the same page with you with the idea is, could there be a leftover shower or an isolated shower on Sunday? I suppose, but I think it's also the sort of thing where probably the vast majority of folks, Sunday will wind up being a dry day.
It could very well be,
Hmm.
but I'm playing it safe for the moment.
Okay. The cat board's curious about my nose. So I had another biopsy done on the tic- I can't pronounce it right. Keratosis. They you get them. Some people get them uh, on various parts of their body. I happen to have to get them on my nose from overexposure to the sun, which is sort of odd because, for one thing, I work a lot out in my yard and it's mostly shade. But I do wear sunscreen and I do, wear a hat. I wear my football cap when I'm outside, but still somehow it wound up happening. Um, right, Tom Contino, 90% of most keratosis is not cancer, but uh, 10%, and it usually takes like a couple of years. 10% of people who get them, who have it, it could turn into cancer. So it's just to be preventative. I had a biopsy a couple of back at the beginning of the year because I had a bunch of them. So um, they froze off, and almost all of them went away except for the biggest one. So they decided, just as a precaution, to biopsy the what was remaining, and we'll see what happens. If they find something, then they'll take care of it, and that'll be that. But I appreciate the concern and the questions, and everybody should kind of check themselves out just in case. Welcome, otherwise, to everybody on the chat board and those of you watching in the background on tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. We are here Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. And if you like the show, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button so that you can hit the like button, which works. And of course, did I leave anything out? Oh, make sure you do subscribe because you know we love to have more and more subscribers. But anyway, I seem to be rambling just a little bit here. Uh, shall we begin and take a look at what's going on?
So let us look ahead. Let us take a look at the maps. Let us
Let us
ponder.
do that. Yes,
Let's,
indeed. Let us do that. And
let's
we'll start.
prognosticate.
Yes. In fact, everybody just loves when you do the radars. So set up the local radars and then uh, be ready when I get through the first couple of maps here. But we don't have any watches or warnings up and down the eastern seaboard, but we do have severe thunderstorm watches up this evening in southern Mississippi and southeast Louisiana, also in central Texas, also in northwest Oklahoma, south central Kansas. It becomes a tornado watch in western Kansas and in the Oklahoma panhandle, and then back to severe thunderstorm watches in eastern Colorado and northeastern New Mexico. We have heat advisories up for central and northern California. Trough in the east means ridge in the west. The ridge in the west means that it gets hot in the west. And we're seeing that in the form of these heat advisories that are posted. And now the satellite loop, I was looking at this when I updated it about 10 minutes ago. I mean, it's such a mess. I mean, you got all this. there's all this Gulf moisture, just about all over the place. What you're seeing across the Northeast is really the Gulf moisture that's been down around through the South for the last several days or longer. So this first short wave and this first area of moisture is now lifted northward. And if you notice, there are showers and storms. There's an east-west line that's moving through eastern Louisiana and into Mississippi. And then there's a north-south line that runs from south central Louisiana down into the Gulf. And that's moving eastward. So you got one line moving from south to north, the other line moving from west to east, which kind of tells you that there's a low here somewhere. And this is going to be the weather maker probably for later Friday night, and early Saturday.
And that, again, is affiliated with unstable air. The upper atmosphere will be unstable as this disturbance passes overhead on Saturday and could very well lead to some showery weather here and possibly some thundery weather too for the start of your weekend on Saturday. And then hopefully things will dry out and flatten out and stabilize to allow for some nicer weather to move in second half of the weekend on Sunday. It looks, Joe, like next week we may very well see the warm up that so many have been waiting for. I went on the lower Hudson Valley forecast and went for temperatures at or above 80 by this time
Yeah,
next week.
should do it. It's time for Rayo's Radars.
If you'll allow me to
I
have this.
most certainly will and certainly have.
All right, hang on for a second while I bring you. What is this here? Oh, there you are. Good. And I didn't even hang on for a second here. I get that and this
That,
and
you push this button and you hit that button.
that and this
Go
and
to the
that.
left, you go to the right, you go up, you go down.
And there we go.
There
Took
you
a
go.
little while, but here we are. Starting off with the local radar, actually not as local as you might want. In fact, this is the radar from Philadelphia. Let me move it up to.
Well, you could have started with Philadelphia. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, you think about it. You think about this now, and the Philadelphia radar, where it's located relative to New York City, is no different than the Upton radar out in eastern Long Island, distance from New
Yeah,
York
because
City.
it's at Fort Dix,
It's
New
pretty
Jersey.
pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, you could see that most of New Guernsey, especially northern New Jersey, has significant rainfall, or at least it was, at least up until the last few frames, where it seems to be petering out a bit. But here in the lower Hudson Valley, rain is falling now. Rain is falling across New York City. Rain is falling across all of Long Island, and also most of, except for the extreme northeast corner of Connecticut. It's all moving on a west southwest to east northeast trek, and will probably be with us through most of the overnight hours tonight, and probably will not diminish until after sunrise tomorrow. We can take a look at the Philadelphia radar. We just saw it, but we'll bring it back up again. And as you can see, the precipitation is beginning to show signs of winding down across extreme southern New Jersey. It is already ending across a good part of Delaware. Eastern Pennsylvania, for the most part, still in it. And Maryland pretty well is out of it now. Let's go north and west up into, let's say, the Binghamton area, the Binghamton radar showing wet weather across central New York State and also across north central Pennsylvania. Some of this activity is coming down light to moderately. We'll continue to go northwest. Let's go over to Detroit, and we can see that there's almost like an arm or a band of precipitation. This is much thinner than what we're seeing in the immediate New York area or the New York, Pennsylvania area. But you see showers lifting southwest to northeast across Detroit and the lower peninsula of Michigan. Now let's go to the nation's midsection. Let's go, for example, to let's go to Webster County, Hastings, Nebraska, where you see wet weather moving across from west to east, also affecting portions of northern Kansas And in fact, if we look at the Kansas radar, we could see precipitation marching across central into eastern Kansas, heading for Missouri, northwestern Missouri, getting into some wet weather there too. And if we go further south, let's say down to Mississippi, we have some rather potent shower and thunderstorm activity lifting northward from the Gulf across eastern sections of Louisiana and on up into southern sections of Mississippi. And this area right here, this squally zone, looks like a squall line moving from almost due south to north. That looks fairly potent. There could very well be some severe weather associated with that, maybe some damaging winds, and maybe even a funnel cloud or a tornado associated with that activity as well. We'll take a look at one more radar. This would be down into, well, let's see. Did we just look at this? This was Jackson, Mississippi, Brandon. Again, you can see that activity lifting northward and quite rapidly. And again, some of this activity showing signs of being rather potent, especially at the first few frames of the loop. And this thundery weather again sweeping northward and affecting again parts of Louisiana and southern Mississippi. Let me just check. I want to check Arkansas, Little Rock area.
And also after that, check eastern Colorado.
Okay, okay. Nothing is happening at the immediate vicinity of Little Rock, although extreme southern Arkansas getting some of that activity we just saw a few moments ago. And you wanted Colorado. Let's take a look at Colorado. This is Denver, and Denver is showing precipitation moving from northwest to southeast, affecting the Denver area and also other areas to the south of Denver as well. This is the Front Range Airport, by the way.
Okay, very good. And I've got the wider shot, which I'm going to put up right now, and you can see there's actually a fair amount of precip going on in the U.S. at the moment with the what's in the Northeast, and that all extending all the way back up into Western New York, and then we have an area in the Great Lakes where we've got some rain showers there, and of course you see what's in the plains and back through Colorado. In fact, I'm just noticing, there's a number of severe thunderstorm warnings there in southwest Colorado, southwest Kansas, and in the Oklahoma Panhandle with those storms, and then some popcorny showers that are back out into parts of Utah and Nevada. And actually, for a change, it's not raining over me, at least not at the moment. Storm Prediction Center tonight is a sea of slight risks. We have the largest area is in North Texas and Oklahoma, into Kansas and Colorado and Northeast New Mexico. Another small area in Southwest Texas, another small area in Central Texas, and another area in Southeast Louisiana and in Southern Mississippi. And we have a spattering of 2 to 5% tornado risk areas. The 5% tornado risk areas, the Oklahoma Panhandle, Eastern Colorado, and Western Kansas. Now, day 2, and this is for Thursday into Friday, we have a slight risk in parts of Central and West Texas, a pretty large area of marginal risk for isolated severe thunderstorms from eastern New Mexico to the Carolinas and down into northern Florida. And then as we move on to day 3, and that is Friday into Saturday morning, we have a marginal risk into Delaware Bay, right along the Pennsylvania state line and points south. Slight risk, southern Virginia, much of North and South Carolina, a good chunk of the state of Georgia, down to southeast Alabama and into the Florida Panhandle. Nothing up there in the long range. I suspect I'll be curious to see what they do tomorrow, because the low is going to be going by Friday night, early Saturday morning, and what happens Saturday afternoon is going to be with the upper trough. So they're going to probably have general thunderstorms indicated. I wonder whether they might have a marginal risk for severe weather being indicated as well. That's kind of popped into my head.
It'll be well, interesting to see. I went to SPC this morning and was wondering whether or not they would have something for Saturday for the Northeast or the Mid Atlantic, and they said predictability was too low. But it seems to me, I would think that there's a pretty good chance that we're going to see. I don't know about severe, but I think there's going to be a pretty good chance that we'll see at least some general thunderstorm activity in our sector. And tomorrow we shall see because their day three will correspond to Saturday. So we'll see how that all pans out.
So the 7 day rainfall forecast is loaded with tonight's system and also with the system for Friday into Saturday. So we're looking at anywhere from an inch to an inch and a half total going in through Saturday evening from eastern Maryland all the way up into Maine. Uh, it gets a little more patchy as you go further south. This is half to three quarters. Again, this is over 7 days. But we're definitely seeing a decrease in the amount of rainfall that's being forecast, given the change in the pattern that we're going to see next week. Rainfall amounts are increasing, though, in the northern Rockies and up in the northern plains, where we have anywhere from an inch to an inch and a half plus in some areas of Montana and in the Dakotas. Also, a plus size area in south central Kansas, southeast Louisiana, and along the Gulf Coast of Mississippi, Alabama, into western Florida. So it's all about short waves and upper lows, as it is always the case when you get into late May. We've got an upper low tonight sitting in Wisconsin. That's kind of the driver. And if you notice these height lines that are drawn, they're not particularly smooth. There's a lot of little jagged edges in here, and that reflects little short waves that are rippling along in the flow, and we're seeing the results of that from the what we saw on the radar with all these areas of rain and thunderstorms around. And here in the Northeast, it's a little hard to pick out, but there's a little short wave that is moving northeastward in that flow, which is responsible for the rain, but it's relatively weak. Here's the upper low that's sort of steering all this. And as we go through the next 48 hours, that upper low is going to swing eastward, pivot around. The trough kind of opens up, and then another short wave drops down from Labrador. You see I'll just back it up. You see how it goes from white to blue up in Canada, on the Canada side of the Great Lakes. So that's another upper trough that gets involved and sharpens up the trough in the east. Actually goes somewhat with a negative tilt here for Friday night, which is kind of interesting because I think that might imply that there's a potential for, it's quite possible that some areas Friday night, particularly North Jersey and Long Island, northeastward into southern New England, could wind up with I think they could wind up with a pretty decent rainfall out of this. And then that trough lifts up, and now you've got the main body of the northern trough still hanging around on Saturday. And right in here is that the cold upper trough that's going to be potentially producing some showers and thunderstorms running around ahead of it. So, whenever I see a sharp shortwave this time of year like this, this is sort of what you see when you want to think about the idea that maybe some of the thunderstorms could be strong or potentially even severe. And then the trough does hang around on Sunday to some extent. I think that's going to mean a cold, unstable atmosphere. So that's why we're kind of being a little bit cautious about saying it's going to be a beautiful day all day long. Because if it's cold like this aloft, you are going to probably wind up at least with some instability, and you almost have to think about throwing an isolated shower or two in there. But finally, that trough pulls out on Monday, starts to pull out Monday, and then we get into a ridge. And under that ridge, by the way, a cutoff forms off the southeast coast. But we're going to have an east-west upper high sitting over southern New York State into southern New England by the time we get to Wednesday. Now, to me, Joe, that says that the hottest, if you want to talk about where the temperatures are going to wind up being the most above normal, it's probably going to be up in northern New England and in southeastern Canada. We'll see above normal temperatures here, but the what I would call plus plus, the much above normal temperature anomalies are going to be further north because that's where they're going to be north of the upper high.
Yeah, that would be the pattern you're showing right now, and we mentioned this about a week or two ago. That's a Rex block. That's an upper level ridge of high pressure overlying or even seemingly cradling an upper level low, which is located due south of it. And you're right. If that be the case, and this is for the middle of next week, you'll have the hottest temperature or the warmest temperatures up over upstate New York and northern New England. We've seen this in recent years. We've had cases where, for example, Philadelphia and New York topped out at, let's say, 80 or 85, but places like Caribou or Burlington, Vermont, or whatever, even Montreal, have been in the 90s. And I'm not saying that's going to happen next week, but it does look like we are finally going to see some warmer temperatures, and the biggest warm up will probably be areas to the north of New York City beginning Monday or Tuesday of next week. So if you're waiting for the warm up, incidentally, so far at Central Park, the hottest temperature that they have seen at Belvedere Castle is 85 in April, and again 85 degrees so far this month of May. And today, May 28th, and this is according to the New York City climatologist extraordinaire, Rob Friedlewitz. According to Rob, May 28th is the average date of New York's first reading in the 90s. It hasn't happened yet, but the average date usually falls on the 28th. Since 1970, it has happened as early as April the 7th. That happened in 2010, that we had a 90-degree day at Central Park, April 7th, 2010. And it's also happened as late as, this is the first 90-degree temperature now, in 1985, it hadn't hit 90 degrees until July 14th. But this date is more than 2 weeks earlier than what the average date was in the years before 1930, which was June 14th, 1870 to 1929. You wouldn't anticipate the first 90-degree day until around the 14th of June. Now it's May 28th, but again, we're still working on it. We haven't seen a 90-degree day in Central Park yet, and who knows, maybe next week we might actually, if we don't hit it, we might actually get a lot closer than what we've seen so far at 85.
Right. Well, you look at the anomalies. I have the anomaly map here, and of course, you see, starting on Saturday, we start to see temperatures trending below average, pretty much up and down the eastern seaboard, and the same for Sunday, and still holding on for Monday. But then it starts to go away on Tuesday. But you notice where all the above normals are. It's across the Great Lakes. It's in southeastern Canada, upstate New York, and into Maine on Tuesday, and on Wednesday. It continues there, but also I want to point out in the southeast, it's below normal temperatures. So relative to normal, temperatures are going to be, it's another upside down type of setup because of where the upper high winds up going, and the fact that there's going to be some sort of cutoff low near the southeast coast of the United States. A lot of the below normal temperatures are going to be helped along with the cloud cover. And going through Thursday and to Friday, really not much changes other than the fact that the above normal area starts to actually sink southward Thursday and Friday. So the latter part of next week, you could argue, could wind up being the warmest part of the week, assuming that this all verifies. But let's just backtrack a little bit and take a look at this next system here. So as we said, these short waves have been coming out of the south. So here's the one for tonight. Little low actually forms off the New Jersey coast tomorrow morning and runs away to the northeast. Just some scattered activity in parts of upstate New York, and then you see down in Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, the Gulf Coast, patchy areas of showers and storms, and that next short wave comes out. And from this, we're going to get a low that's going to probably start somewhere in Virginia or Chesapeake Bay and then run up the coast. And with that upper trough going with that negative tilt, you'd see that the European is amplifying the rainfall here substantially, northern New Jersey to New England. This is during Friday night. And then the low goes out. Winds go northwest behind it or northerly behind it. And then the upper trough has to play through. And you don't see this too often where the model actually generates as much precip as it is on the backside of this. So I'm thinking that you got to certainly put in the likelihood that there's going to be some afternoon showers and storms around, maybe some low top thunderstorms because of the the cold air upstairs. And then for Sunday, again, that upper trough lingering. You see the European does form a few showers in parts of upstate New York and in New England. Doesn't really do much down near the coast. So you can kind of take your chances. Again, I think that even if there's forecast for a scattered shower on Sunday, you're you have a high probability of not getting it because they should be widely scattered or even isolated. And then on Monday, high pressure over Pennsylvania. We start to get into a more of a west wind as we move through the week. And again, the warmest part of the week is probably going to be next week. The only thing I would say, as far as next week goes, to be a little careful, if there's some kind of upper low that's sitting off the southeast coast, Europeans picking up a little bit of moisture on that. So you got to just keep an eye on it in case it decides to kind of start sliding northward. And that might mean cloud issues. I don't want to go as far as to say that it might mean some rain. And for now, I wouldn't necessarily put it in the forecast, but just something to keep an eye on. And, running forward after that, I mean, the model just looks kind of benign overall. I don't see any, big systems. The European is still trying to hint at something tropical coming out of the Northwest Caribbean around June 8th or 9th. It's kind of backed off on something later next week. Now it's pushed it back into the following week. So, if usually if you're going to get a tropical system this time of year, you're going to get it in the Northwest Caribbean Sea. But we shall see what we shall see. And Rich Rothmansky saying that the Hurricane Center is predicting anywhere between 13 and 19 named storms. What did they do last year? What did they say last year? 14 to 24 or something like that?
I'm not sure.
I don't remember.
I don't, but 13 to 19. Think about that. That's a pretty wide spread, if you will. I
Yeah.
mean, I mean, there's one thing to call for, let's say, 12 or 13. Nothing to call for like 19 or 20. That to me is a pretty wide spread for a forecast. I think that they should make it a little bit more narrower, so to speak. And you just brought up this is the CPC, Climate Prediction Center, hazardous weather outlook. And that slight risk that you see, that zone that they're pointing out there, is for hazardous temperatures, abnormally hot temperatures or warm temperatures, and that would be for the middle of next week, Joe. So in that zone that we're looking at right here, I
That
would
would be,
suppose.
yeah, next Thursday and Friday.
Yeah, so I would suppose that they are alluding to the possibility of at least 90 degrees or higher in that zone for the 5th and 6th of June next week. And if they're that close in terms of 90 plus or hot temperatures, you can see that is relatively near to the Northeast. The Northeast is not in that area, but still, you can see that here's New York City, here's the tri-state area, and here is the zone that they are suggesting there's a slight risk of getting abnormally warm or hot temperatures. So maybe about the middle or latter part of next week, well up into the 80s to, as I said or alluded to earlier, maybe 90, that the first 90 might be heading our way or close to 90 later next week. We shall see. But
They
climate
they
prediction.
don't, do they give like a number when they say slight risk? SPC slight risk is 15%. WPC slight risk is 15 to 40%. Is there like a percentage that goes there with that slight risk?
Yes,
Bobby
slight risk,
Livingsworth on the satellite on the chat board asks the question.
extreme heat, slight risk 20 to 40%. That is what
20 to
they.
40%. Okay, there you go.
So there you go.
Steve Lapointe hits the tip jar. Thank you, Steve Lapointe. And yes, if you are watching and you like the show, hit the like button, please. We like Briller Jeopardy, and I think you have it.
Yes, I do. I do have it. And as soon as I bring it up here, have to go through all of these machinations in order to get this because I have two different Facebook sites, and so okay. So what we have here tonight on Briller Jeopardy is average annual high temperatures, and here's a little twist, Joe. Here's a little twist. Average annual high temperatures. Average annual highs.
I mean,
I
the
don't.
average yearly temp for the whole year?
I.
Uh,
You see, I didn't really take a close look at the question until
all right,
just
we'll
now.
read it.
On this Briller Jeopardy, average annual highs, and to make it even more confusing, in these European cities. So,
Average annual highs. All right, so sacrifice one of sacrifice one of those cities and tell us the number, and maybe we can figure out what he exactly means by this. I mean,
all right,
does it
I'll
look like it's a number that would correspond to a yearly temperature or the month of June?
well, no, I think that the temperature could be higher. The number he gives for Athens,
Okay.
Athens, Athens, Greece, is 72, and that
Okay,
seems
so
kind
that's got to be like the annual average. Like for the whole year, the average temperature over
of,
365 days
all
is
right. Well,
72.
that it's a little different than what we normally.
Yeah, well, we're gonna have to
Tom,
use our heads a little bit, but you know
Tom
what?
Contino,
We've got a clue here. We've got a starting point, so we can kind of figure our way around this. So go ahead.
Tom Contino says, "Toss it, throw a flag." All right. So with that as a backdrop, Athens annual average annual high temperatures, average annual high temperatures in Athens, 72. Now from there, Amsterdam.
Okay, Amsterdam. I will say, uh, it's a marine climate to some extent.
And Scott Briller, according to Renata, Scott Briller says yearly. So
I'll say, I'll say 56.
now you see, folks, you think that it's a very complicated, complex thing, and you apologize and you say, well, we'll see how this all pans out. And then this guy comes up with a 56, which is practically on the nose. It's snake country, Joe, Amsterdam.
Well, Carol DeCara said double nickels.
No, that's a touch too cool. So what does that?
Okay, so then Chuck Cardillo said 57.
And there you go. Chuck, 57 for you. Amsterdam, 57 degrees. How about Barcelona? That's in Spain, España.
I'll say, well, I mean, I don't know that it's as high. Athens was 72. I'll say 69.
He did it again, folks. Again, Joe, snake country. You're right there.
Well, Miss Fowlerite said 70.
Too warm.
And that means Chuck Cardillo and Tyler Fenga said 68.
There you go.
And Frank R.
A bell ring for you.
And
Ta-da.
Christina Pedia.
Yes. Okay, so number 4 here is Copenhagen, or is it Copenhagen?
Copenhagen. Copenhagen is I'm sorry, it's wait, I'm trying to is it Copenhagen's in what country? Sweden? Finland? Norway? I forget.
It's one of those.
Okay. No, you forgot too.
Is
Okay.
it Denmark?
Denmark. Oh, it's Denmark. Okay, so let's see. 72, 69. What was the one that I also what was the other one I just got close to? What was the second one? I forgot.
Amsterdam?
Amsterdam. What did I say for what did we get for Amsterdam?
57.
Well, it's kind of along the same, a little northeast. I'll say 56.
Up just a tad too high, Joe. A little too
Okay.
high.
Tyler Fiega said 53.
Let me give
Um,
bell ring for the 53.
okay.
Ta-da! Vincent Croce, 53, along with Tyler Finger. Last one. It's where the population is increasing rapidly because the population is Dublin. Yeah,
Ireland.
yes.
Hmm.
I can
It
say
doesn't
that I,
get hot. It doesn't get too hot there often. It doesn't get cold there often. It's a marine climate. In the wintertime, it's gloomy and chilly all the time. I'll say 54.
just a tad too cool.
A tad too cool. Christinapedia went 58.
She's in snake country with the 58. 58.
And Harold Olson said 59.
Nope, too a little too warm.
All right, so Mr. Fenga gets 57.
And there you go. 57. I was in Dublin, Ireland on the day after St. Patrick's Day in 2015. I was there uh, at 4:30 in the morning at the airport, waiting for my next connecting flight. And I'm sitting there, literally, Joe. I was sitting there all by myself at 4:30 a.m. and I'm looking out the window. It was like semi drizzling, and I'm saying, "So this is Dublin."
Yeah.
At least I can say now I've been to Ireland. I've been to Dublin.
Beautiful country, Ireland. I mean, you were just at the airport. You didn't spend time there.
No, I did not spend time there.
Okay. Where were you connecting to?
Dusseldorf, Germany.
Oh, and you spent time in Dusseldorf.
I've been to Dusseldorf a few times. My wife is German, and she's never been to Dusseldorf. I don't think
Oh,
she's been to Germany, but not to
not
Dusseldorf.
to Dusseldorf. All right. All right, I think we can wrap it up. By the way, while you were doing the radar, local radars, I was putting my clothes, taking my clothes out of the dryer and putting the wash into the dryer. So I got something. It disappeared for about a minute there.
Oh, okay.
I
Well,
didn't
you're
want
able.
my clothes. I didn't want my clothes to get moldy. Okie dokie. So, that wraps it up for tonight, and which means we will be back tomorrow night at 7:35 p.m. So everybody stay safe, and we'll see you tomorrow. Night, night.
Good night.